She opened her eyes slowly and was immediately aware of the intense pain pulsating through her body. Her vision was blurred, and she could barely make out the shapes of the figures around her. "Where am I?" she asked weakly. "You're in hospital, Annie," came a distant reply in a quietly spoken male voice. "I'm Dr. Stevens." As he spoke, she drifted back into her sedated unconsciousness.
My husband and I had travelled down from Thirsk to be with our daughter when we were informed of the assault. Annie was attacked in Hyde Park in Leeds when she was on her way back to the flat she shared with her friend Lucy. They had been celebrating the start of the new term at Leeds University with fellow students in the pub next to the park. Annie said she remembered leaving the pub alone and decided to take the shortcut home through the park. Lucy had stayed behind with her boyfriend Kevin. When Annie reached the statue of Queen Victoria, she remembered stopping to sit on a bench facing the old Queen, and she began thinking about the new term at uni. Annie's memory of the attack was a complete blank. We told her she'd been viciously attacked, but not sexually. Annie couldn't think of any obvious reason for the attack. Surprisingly, no witnesses came forward with any helpful information. The police told us a female jogger had discovered Annie and had immediately called the emergency services.
Why had the attacker inflicted such serious injuries on our daughter? Annie hadn't been raped or robbed.
When Annie recovered sufficiently to leave hospital, we brought her home to Thirsk, where we knew she would be safe with us.
Lucy and Kevin came up to see Annie when they were visiting Lucy's parents, who lived in Wetherby. Lucy's dad was a respected cosmetic surgeon with a practice in Leeds.
We learned later from Lucy that she'd been uneasy and puzzled over the concern her father was showing towards Annie's assault. This was unusual for him, as money was always his first priority. In the meantime, Kevin had a snippet of information that might be of help. He'd noticed a man in the pub watching them, but didn't think anything of it at the time. The man left the pub shortly after Annie. Kevin remembered he was tall and wore a leather jacket and had an untidy ponytail trailing over the collar. Kevin thought he might be working at the fairground on Woodhouse Moor, near the park. We decided to inform the police of this possible lead. The police came to visit us, only to say that they'd been to the fairground and questioned a man fitting Kevin's description, but to no avail. He'd willingly given a DNA sample, but that didn't match the DNA found on her clothing when she was attacked.
This news depressed Annie. The awful event had brought her world to an abrupt halt, and her recovery was going to be slow.
Her studies at the university would have to be put on hold, along with the rest of her life, until her physical and mental state improved. Lucy's uneasiness over her father's concern towards Annie was justified when he revealed that he'd received threats from the husband of one of his patients. It turned out that Lucy's father had performed some cosmetic surgery on the man's wife. These nips and tucks didn't quite enhance her in the way they'd hoped. To make matters worse, it turned out Lucy's dad was a compulsive gambler and was in debt to the man who was an on-course bookmaker at Wetherby Racecourse. The surgery was an attempt to clear the debt by carrying out the work on his wife. The bookmaker became so paranoid about what he thought was botched work, he decided to take revenge. He knew the surgeon had 2 daughters. Unfortunately, he mistakenly assumed that Annie was one of the daughters. So, he attacked the wrong girl. In the light of the revelations made by Lucy's dad, the police arrested the bookmaker, and his DNA matched the sample found on Annie's clothing. This, along with his full confession, was enough for a serious assault charge that we hoped would bring closure for Annie and for the families concerned. Or so we thought. But as a result of the severity of Annie's injuries, complications set in. She returned to hospital, where her condition deteriorated, and she died in my arms. The bookmaker was found guilty of murder, but that would never give us back our beautiful daughter.
Strong as you were, tender you go. I'm watching you breathing for the last time. A song for your heart, but when it is quiet, I know